The third night of the Democratic convention focused in part on gun control. We had emotional speeches from former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords and other victims of gun violence. But so far, still no mention of the violent protests that we have seen in major cities, the huge increase in homicides. And then you've got the example of the Portland police declaring a riot after the 84th night of unrest there. Federal officers clashed with agitators outside of an ICE building. They threw rocks, bottles, and a hammer at the authorities there. So, Greg, you know, it feels obviously everyone is moved by the story of Gabby Giffords and this woman who spoke about her son being shot at a birthday party, a stray bullet. These are all very tragic stories. But given what we see going on around the nation, and given the fact that you've got, I think, an 80% increase in gun sales in this country right now because people are concerned, is this moment, you know, are they meeting the moment?
No, they're not. I said this yesterday. Rather than have the courage to condemn the very specific crimes of violence that are terrorizing right now the citizens in our cities, they instead created a broad target out of generic gun violence. So they use tragedy kind of as a shield. So when you make a broad target out of gun violence, what you're saying is everything, good or bad, resulting from the gun is kind of like all the same. They're all kind of equal. By doing that, they deftly, or they think they did deftly, sidestep confronting an American crisis that they are in part responsible for, because these are cities run by Democratic leaders. And they know that by not doing anything, it creates a lot of tension and anxiety so that the voters might stop and think whether voting for Trump is going to make this worse or not. They're essentially leveraging terror. They're extorting a vote out of America. It's pretty disgusting.
You know, Juan, I wonder, with all of this discussion about the suburban voter, you know, the suburban voter is concerned about what's going on in the cities. And if anything, it feels like at this moment there's concern about these defund the police movements and whether or not that violence is going to make its way, as it already has in some cases, from the cities out to the suburbs. I want to just roll this video. This is in New York. I warn you, it's a very horrific scene. A former police officer was assaulted on the street. This is on 39th Street. This is basically Midtown in the middle of the afternoon. And in New York, they pulled 600 police officers off the street. And now we're seeing this. So is this a mistake for Democrats to ignore this?
They're not ignoring it. I mean, first of all, there's not widespread violence.
They haven't mentioned it once, Juan.
Okay, there's not widespread violence in American cities. Let's not get buy into Donald Trump's nonsense about American
crime.
Wait
a minute, Juan.
Where are your
Homicides are up 30%. Hold on.
True. Okay.
Homicides
let me
are
finish
up 37%
you guys are pushing a false narrative.
I'm not
You're
Donald
pushing
Trump.
a totally
I'm telling you the facts. Every day I tell you the facts, Juan, and you keep shifting it to Donald Trump. It's pathetic. You need to come up with a new talking point.
Violence and violent crime in this country is down. It's a near 30-year low.
The murders are up. The shootings are up.
Okay,
Stop it,
but
Juan. Find a new talking point.
It has nothing to do with anarchist violence. Okay, this is not anarchist violence, by a small group in Portland, Oregon, that's suddenly being blown into like, oh, that represents what's going on in American cities. That's just wrong. That's just a total distraction. The reality is that, Democrats are not responsible for some violent anarchists no more than Donald Trump is responsible for QAnon violence or
QAnon violence.
Hold on. Wait a second. I want to get to Dana.
In Charlottesville who run over somebody and kill people.
You are hilarious.
Dana, the fact of the matter is that homicides are up 37% in 20 cities across America. This is a widespread issue. So are the suburban voters going to look to Donald Trump in this moment when they might have looked to Joe Biden if this is just not even addressed?
Well, I think I've mentioned on the show that suburban voters, people that live in the suburbs like to go to the cities. And they do all the great things that they can do in the cities, museums, theater, arts, whatever it is that they want to do, restaurants, things like that. So, yeah, I mean, if you know that the violence is up in your city, or the homicides, to be specific, are up, would you go? Probably not. And also, if you add the pandemic on top of it, there's nothing to go to. So we have a twin problem. Talk about a twin-demic. There you go. There is one of them. I do want to mention one thing about last night. Obviously, Gabby Giffords, amazing story. When she talked about she lost some ability to speak, but she didn't lose her voice. I thought it was a beautiful line. But I also thought that when you saw those moms and the students who are very frustrated because they feel like they are forgotten. There's a big school shooting. We talk about it for 4 days, and it goes away. Happens again. We talk about it. Goes away. So I don't blame the Democrats for bringing that up. I do think, though, that they do need to think about something Katie Pavlich brought up last night. There are, since January, 2.5 million more gun owners in the United States. Couple that with the New York State Attorney General has called for the dissolution of the National Rifle Association rather than just punishing for bad behavior on the finances. So now if you're looking at a very close election, I don't know if that's the best thing to do, but I understand why they appealed to those younger people and the parents.
Jesse?
Looting's up, arson's up, shootings are up, and murder's up. Maybe the Democratic politicians in the city are misreporting their own criminal activity. I doubt that, though. So I think the Democrats are just misreading the nation. This is not 2015 where we're seeing a rash of school shootings or mass shootings. This is 2020. And you're seeing a rise in homicides, shootings, quality of life issues, homelessness, riots, and street crime. If you live in a major metropolitan area or a big market, medium market, and you turn on the local news every single night, they lead with crime stories. And if you're in the burbs of those local markets, you're tuning in and you're seeing crime, crime, crime at the top of every hour. And then you go on social media and you're looking at viral videos. The guy in Portland that got kicked in the head, almost died, that's got more views than some of these Democrats speaking at the convention. So you can't censor this where CNN doesn't report it or the New York Times doesn't report it. Everybody feels it. And if you say we're going to take your guns away and defund the police during this surge of chaos, that's just a recipe for disaster. And not only have they not mentioned crime, they haven't mentioned China, Russia, impeachment, judges, North Korea, taxes, a border wall, trade, God, or terrorism. They've either just ignored those issues or they've ceded it all to Donald Trump, and that's not good.